Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of explorations of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Sprint 2. This was a 1976 release by Key Games. Key Games was a subsidiary of Atari who were disguised as a competitor as a way of getting around exclusivity deals. By making use of Key Games to clone Atari games, Atari actually managed to negotiate exclusivity deals with two companies at the same time, which was rather clever, if a little bit underhanded. Sprint 2 was a follow-up to Atari's earlier racing games called Grand Track 10 and Grand Track 20, but its main difference from those games is that it incorporated a 6502 microprocessor instead of using discrete logic. So this allowed the game to have better graphics, it allowed more tracks, and significantly it allowed for computer-controlled cars as well, so you could play this by yourself against computer-controlled opponents. Now the 2 in the title, Sprint 2, refers to it being two-player, so it's not the second Sprint game, it's Sprint for two players. And this can be seen by the fact that this was followed up by Sprint 4 and Sprint 8, which, as you can imagine, supported 4 players and 8 players respectively. Sprint 4 and Sprint 8 were also noteworthy in that they brought colour to this game, but Sprint 2 that we're going to be looking at today is only black and white. So, let's go play Sprint 2.
Okay, here we are with Sprint 2. So this was a racing game from the early days of Atari. I actually rather like this game. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but, well, let's take a look. So you can play this in one player or two player. It was called Sprint 2 because it was sort of designed to be played two player, but you can play it one player, no problem as well. So, one player, and you can choose the track, or you can just start as I've done. Now, what the hell are the controls? There we go. So, right trigger to accelerate, right bumper to change up gears. Oh no. So, much like Monte Carlo and Fire Track that we've seen previously, you have manual gear shift in this. And it also makes use of a sort of paddle control style steering system. So in the case of the Nintendo Switch version here, what you do is you just push the direction that you want to go, basically, and your car will turn towards that direction. And the aim in this game is not necessarily to win a race as such. You'll notice up at the top of the screen you're scoring points. Whoops. And so all you have to do is score as many points as you can by the time the time runs out. So despite this not being a scrolling game like those other games I mentioned, Monte Carlo, Fire Track and Superbug, as we'll see in a few weeks, yeah, it's the same basic game structure here. So you have a time limit and you have a target score to reach, and if you reach that target score you will get an extended play. Oh god. Which I don't think we're going to reach this time. There we go. Rating rookie. Well then. Well then. Okay, let's try again. So you can change tracks somehow. There we are. So there's a whole bunch of different tracks in this game, which was one of its sort of big selling points over the Grand Track games, its predecessors. So let's try this one. And what's quite interesting about the different tracks is that it has a different target score for each one. So you see the previous one, because it was a very short and simple track, we had to get 150 points to get extended play. On this one, because it's longer and more complicated, we only need to get 60 points for an extend. Which, if you're as skilled as I am, should be no problem whatsoever. There we go. Oh no! So you can get into a decent I'm undermining my own credibility here. You can get yourself into a decent rhythm quite easily on this, but I do find that changing up into 4th gear is generally a recipe for disaster. Just because 4th gear feels like it goes slightly too fast to be controllable. Right, there's my 60 points. So that should mean when the time runs out, I get a bit more time to play with. I don't feel like I'm going to catch up with black at this rate, though, because I think black has lapped me twice at this point. But the nice thing about this... not concentrating. That's what I get for looking at the camera. Yeah, the nice thing about this game, compared to sort of more conventional competitive racing games, is that two unequally skilled players can still enjoy this without one feeling like they're being left behind too much, because if you choose to, you can just focus exclusively on your own score. So if you're playing against someone who's much better at this game than you are, or indeed against a computer-controlled opponent, you can just try and get a high score for yourself. Just try and get a personal best. Rating Pro, check me out. I am a professional Sprint 2 racer. Right, let's try another track. So let's have a go at this one. Extended play for 90 points on this one. Again, I'm probably too cowardly to change out of third gear, to be honest. You can... You notice I'm going the same speed as black at this point. So I can catch up black just by taking a better racing line through these corners. But otherwise, the computer-controlled cars are pretty infallible. So they don't crash or anything. But in order to make up for that, they don't go at the maximum possible speed you can go at in this game. So it kind of balances out. Now, I mentioned before in the fire truck and Monte Carlo episodes, so I really like the control scheme in this, because I always found top-down races with a control scheme that required you to sort of turn left and right and accelerate to be quite challenging for some reason. This one, it just feels a little bit more intuitive to make use of the analog controls to push in the direction you want to go. I've never played using an original paddle controller or the steering wheel controller that this game would have originally used, so I don't know if that's any more difficult than what I'm experiencing right now, but sort of from a modern perspective, the analog controls in this work really nicely. It's a nice way to approach the top-down racing game. I mean, it takes a little bit of getting used to if you're more accustomed to the traditional way of doing things, the push left to turn left, push right to turn right, press accelerate to go sort of thing. But no, I really like this. I find this a lot more appealing than a lot of early top-down racing games. Like, for example, I have a copy of Super Sprint on my Atari ST. That I find quite challenging to play just because of the way that the steering is implemented. And the same for the various arcade ports of Super Sprint. And if you're wondering, yes, indeed, Super Sprint is a later incarnation of this game. So Super Sprint is full colour. I think it made use of a 16-bit processor, I want to say. It had much, much better graphics. It had music. And it was 3-player instead of 2-player. So I was very interested to hear of the existence of Sprint 8. An 8-player version of this game. That must have been absolute chaos. So the mind boggles what the cabinet for that would have looked like. Just how big the screen would have had to be in order for everyone to be able to see. And just the sheer amount of space that 8 steering wheels would take up. I have trouble even picturing how that would be possible. Oh, this is not a good course for my level of skill. We should get our extend though. Oh no. I just love those little car sprites as well. I think they're really charming. And actually, they kind of made a return on several of the Atari 2600 racing games over the years as well. It's a 2600 game called, I think it's just called Race or something like that, because game titles were very literal back then. But yeah, it uses pretty much the same car sprite in sort of lower resolution giant pixelovision for the 2600. Always a delight. Pro rating, check me out. I am the best. Anyway, that was Sprint 2. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue a small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.